Welcome to the Strategic Growth Experts Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Taracco. I'm a business consultant, digital marketing expert, and real estate investor. And this podcast is meant to inspire you, educate you, and help you access your highest potential. Subscribe to the Strategic Growth Experts Podcast on iTunes. Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter, and check out the website at strategicgrowthexperts.com.
Welcome to the Strategic Growth Experts Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Taracco. Today I have a special guest, Mandy Morris. She is an entrepreneur and a health coach. Mandy, how are you today?
I am fantastic, Brandon. How are you?
Good. It's really good to have you. We kind of connected, and I seen one of your videos. You were talking about energy and frequency and kind of how your environment impacts you. And I really resonated with that message because it's really the core of making an impact in this world as entrepreneurs, and not just doing it for yourself, but doing it for other people and kind of creating, a space for people to really learn and grow in. And that's really what we're about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. My journey towards kind of understanding energy, and I'm kind of behind the science aspect of it. That was really what dragged me into it, and then the spirituality and all of the other mindset shifts and everything kind of came with it. My goal or my focus recently has been explaining the science behind why we are the way that we are, the way that we feel, energy, frequency, vibrations, all of these things that people have thought are so kind of up there, woo-woo, talking about chakras and auric fields, bringing the science backing to it. I've been really fortunate to sit in labs and study frequency and study sound vibration and tie it all together and kind of make sense and bridge the gap between what sounds woo-woo and what's an actual science, and seeing the relatability. It's just like religion. Some religions are saying the same thing but in a different tone. It's the same concept with energy, is that it's just the verbiage that I'm trying to bridge the gap in between so that people can understand how much our environment is impacted by things that we can't even see but that we can feel.
It's really incredible. What's amazing about it is some people who might not have a background in the impact of frequency and vibration is there's all sorts of applications for frequency. And if we're just speaking about sound waves and frequency, there's electrolysis, which you can basically use frequency to separate molecules. Frequency is being weaponized in some cases.
Right.
There's so many facets of frequency and how it impacts. A big impact is on the human being and the health of not just body, mind, spirit impact of frequency, but also as influence and like influencing. And there's so much media out there and what is good to be focusing on. And tell me a little bit more about the study that you've done behind frequency and how it relates to inspired living and health.
Yeah, gosh, there's been honestly so many. Trying to think of one to narrow it down to. My understanding of it, and I guess I'll backtrack on that first, is that, and really what I focus on, because as you said, there's so many different venues that you can look at frequency or vibrations and energy and how it affects us. And what I've focused on is how it affects the human body, and that's on a physical level as well as an emotional level. And what I've come to understand is that it's kind of all one and the same thing. So an energy or a frequency comes towards us, and it passes through our bodies either harmoniously or disharmoniously. So it can mess us up or it can keep us vibrating at a normal state. And because of our environment, there's so many different things that are vibrating, and this is kind of where the studies come in, sitting and studying a microwave or, EMF, electromagnetic fields, the radiation that comes off of cell phone towers or out of power plants. All of those have different frequencies, and you can see them. There's radiation meters that you can use, just a plethora of different machines. But when you see the different frequencies and you see what they do to the human body, because even, we talk about like endocrine glands and so forth, each gland is attached to different organs, and each organ, just like everything, literally everything, it has a frequency, it has a vibration. And if, let's say, just to dumb it down, your liver is vibrating at one frequency, and then some type of radiation permeates and makes the vibration change, that's when people get sick. that's when people get mentally foggy and they experience all of these issues. And so there's actually the ability to not only heal the body through energy frequency, but what we're experiencing collectively is that all of the things, the man-made things that we have, has been creating just a complete disharmony in our bodies, all because of frequency and energy. So a lot of the studies have been just sitting in the lab and looking at a healthy body, the self-healing mechanisms. There's different machines that you can use for each, and it almost looks like, when you have the little patches and the wires all over you, kind of put them on your head and certain parts of your body, and you can basically put an electrode, on one part of the body and then on the, the back, let's say the front part of the liver and the back part of the liver or something, and you can pass frequencies through it, and you can see if it's operating optimally or not. And typically, people who are introducing themselves to negative frequencies, and that can even be emotionally, there's a disconnect in how their body internally is working.
That's really interesting. I remember seeing a video of a Chinese doctor. He's in China somewhere. He built a machine and he recorded maybe the natural state frequencies of different organs, and he's like healing people with these frequencies. There's people traveling from all over the world and going to see him. In some way, you're in control of that, right? You have control over your body and your mind. So, there's a lot of stuff about faith healing and meditation and different things that can occur through your own effort.
And that goes back to kind of bridging that gap of understanding, because you speak to someone who doesn't understand what a healer does, or how monks can meditate over a tumor and literally shrink the tumor in a 4-hour time frame. There's been so many different studies or experiments done on that type of thing, and the reality is that because everything is a frequency, your intention can also create a frequency. And so with the Chinese scientist or doctor you're just speaking about, it's that same thing. You can get a machine to create that frequency, or an intention can do that too. And I think that's where we start seeing that there's actually science behind, when you have like a Reiki healer or something, and they are working through the body, and it all kind of looks crazy, and their hands are moving around you or whatever it is. And the reality is that they're in tune with certain frequencies. They've taught themselves, or they've had a fantastic guru who's taught them, and they know how to emit certain frequencies and allow them to pass through certain parts of the body through intention, which again ties around the manifestation, everything in between, all interconnected. And it can allow for that thing, let's just say it was an organ, to get back to the frequency that it needs to be on to be operating correctly. I totally believe in that. I've seen it,
It's really interesting. And there's a lot of health in general is a really interesting subject, because there's so much information on diets and food and so many different schools of thought and so many ideas. How do you kind of break that all down and not get confused by the noise of it? You have some health coaching programs, and you're doing a lot of stuff in that area to help people reset their health. What kind of things are you doing in that space?
It feels very different than what I see and what programs that I've been through in the past, and what I see a lot of coaches do in at least the health and fitness realm. And it's true. There's so much information out there that how can you possibly sift through it all? And the reality is, because you can have two pieces of information and both are technically correct, but both are completely different about the same topic, right? And what I've come to find with that, and this is something that I teach my clients so deeply, is we're always looking outside of ourselves for answers. And it's very rare that we truly trust and go intrinsically to know what's best for us. And something like health and fitness is so difficult for people to not want to look to someone else for. And typically what they're really looking for is motivation or, information. But the thing is that because the body is not only electrical, but it's biochemical in nature, different circumstances, different places that people live, different things they're interacting with their body, age, all of those things play into the biochemical reactions that the body is going to have at that time. And so something that I have found to be unbelievably helpful for myself has made my fitness journey, my health journey much easier and more tangible, and something that's sustainable. And same with my clients, is that they learn how to trust their own selves. They learn how to listen to their body. They learn how to rebuild their relationship with what their mind and their body is telling them that they actually need, because the body will always tell you what it needs. It's so interconnected to your emotions, to your energy, to the way that you're feeling, and it will give you signals as long as you're willing to listen to them and you have to be consciously aware of them. So it's really kind of the focus is it's not just about information, because there's thousands upon thousands of pages of reading that someone would have to do to truly understand how each, chelated mineral affects the body and then what intestine needs to be digested in. But that's not really what's most important. The most important thing is that they know how to listen to their body. They know when something's wrong, and that they start hearing what it's saying, and the information is presented as it needs to come.
So that's a really good insight. So how does somebody get some power behind that, right? Say there's a circumstance where someone's listening, they're listening to their body, they know something's not right, but they're not really sure what to do about it or where to go.
It takes some time for sure, because they've been programmed to think differently. And so really in my experience, it's been breaking down some of that programming that they've had for so long that they've got to do whatever the doctor says, traditional doctor, or they have to exercise seven days a week for 45 minutes, and they have to eat this, and all these different things. And the reality is that they haven't actually tapped into, does this make sense to me? Does this feel good? Because I had a client who was following what looked like a decent regimen, what a typical trainer would probably put someone on, and she wasn't listening to her body to the point where she was actually allergic to 3 of the foods that she was consuming, and it was causing inflammation in her body, and she couldn't lose weight because of the stress of the inflammation. But because she's been told to do it, she was programmed to supersede her feelings of, I feel ill, I'm having allergic reactions, this is what I need to be doing to be healthy, and just continue to do so without listening to what her body and her mind were physically and emotionally telling her was wrong. And so the first focus with all of my clients, it seems like, oh, yeah, I'll make you a meal plan, and you'll be good to go, and so forth. But that's just not where I come from. It's so much deeper than that. Everything is on an emotional level in my perspective and on programming. And so it's kind of going back through and breaking down the concepts of that and using practices that are going to allow them to step into their truth and figure out, okay, what actually works for me, and how do I listen to my body when it's telling me what to do. And that's through, typically it usually takes about maybe 2 weeks of different practices that we do that kind of break through and allow them to start listening to themselves.
Something that came up for me there is that, if you're listening to this, this journey is not necessarily always about learning. Sometimes it's about unlearning. And a lot of cases,
sure.
and a lot of cases, I was at a training last night, and one of the distinctions was that transformation is not something that you receive. Transformation is usually the result of letting something go, because there's so many different things that are holding people back from living the life that they want or from achieving results in a certain area of life, whether it's health, fitness, wealth, or your business or anything. There's really some things that you need to unlearn. You need to unlearn some thought patterns, some programs, some ways of doing things that maybe aren't working for you. We're constantly being bombarded with all these ideas and energy and frequencies, and it's like, really to maintain your physical health even, you need to take time to let those go. You need to take time to meditate or reset your bioenergetic being.
I love that. I love that you said that, because that's so true with almost, at least in, this is Western culture that I can speak to, is that almost everything that we've been taught is outside of ourselves. And it's actually something in the 30-day Authentic Life program that I'm running right now. What we've seen with the group, and it's one of our biggest lessons, is, and I call it, what about me is not me. And we have to break down all of our beliefs and where they come from. And what you see is that when you look at, it could be religion, it can be, mindset towards your body, everything usually doesn't actually come from them. And then they're like, wow, my mom thought that, my grandma thought that. How long has this been going, genetically? How many generations have we been carrying this belief? And how many of us has it not served and actually been a detriment to our peace and our happiness in our life? And now, what's my true belief? What's serving me as an individual instead of, what Joe Schmo said or what my father did or how I was raised or what school taught me and that type of thing. It's stripping everything away and being like, hey, what actually works for me instead of what I've been told is going to work for me, because we get just so bombarded with aggressive energy towards that we either assimilate or completely rebel.
Yeah. It's almost like unlearning to be able to create in your full capacity.
Completely.
So it's really interesting. Something else that I thought about when I was looking at some of your work was we emit frequency, right? We emit intention. If you have an intention, there's this whole phenomenon. There's a documentary called Water, the Great Mystery. And if you're into documentaries, I suggest you find that documentary and watch it because it talks about all of the amazing properties and capabilities of water. And kind of the end of the whole documentary is basically scientifically proving that water carries biophotonic energy, and it actually, in its purest state, if you went to like Roraima in Venezuela, where there's these amazing waterfalls and this beautiful water, it's just pure, it's completely untouched, it's some of the purest water in the world, it's actually burning in the sense that it's oxidizing. And they did this whole study about how energy and frequency, they tied it into psychic transmission of thought and ideas halfway across the world, from South America to Russia. They were doing this experiment, and they basically showed that you can transfer energy, or you can get insights by sending an intention to somebody, so that this is an actual real phenomenon that's very valid. You have the ability not just to simply receive and be at the effect of all these energies and frequencies around you, but also to be able to create and reset that internally and then generate your own frequency and go out and make it. It's part of making an impact in the world around you, is being clear on how you're able to resonate and intend your creation when you're interacting with other people.
Right. And it's so true. And I think that reminds me of something I was talking about a few days ago, I can't remember with who, about meditation and why people meditate, because, some people are like, I can't sit and meditate, or they've got some misconceptions towards it. And the reality is that, a part of meditation, at least in my understanding, is that it's about raising your frequency, raising your vibration. And meditation is just probably one of the purest ways to do so. And so when you're able to meditate, you're basically, as your vibration raises, it pushes out into your quote-unquote auric field. And that's, when we hear about aura, and it's so woo-woo and all these things, but that auric field then, because everything on this planet has a polarity, and when you push out positivity towards your auric field and what's around you, it's almost like a shield, therefore it will attract like things, and so it attracts positivity. So you can then control your environment strictly by being in a positive state and having higher frequency. And it's something that has been really cool to see some of my crew expand on, is that as they raise their vibration, the lower level things like guilt or shame or annoying people at work or whatever it is just start disappearing. And it's simply because their frequency has raised. Where they're vibrating is on a different level. Therefore, it can't interact with things that are of a lower frequency anymore. It's a universal law. It keeps things simple in that regard.
I love the fact that you ended by saying it keeps things simple, because it really does, because a lot of times you don't even have to think about it. I've actually been using this to make decisions in my life, because I'm looking at, okay, what's the impact if I do this? What's the energy that I feel around it? What's the energy that it creates? And then what's going to be the long-term outcome of having that as kind of an environmental default? Tell me about Paradigm.
Yeah, so okay. Paradigm was created in, I think it was 1975 by a NASA rocket scientist, Dr. Fred Bell. We lost him in 2011, so he turned the company over, his daughter basically took over the company. She was living in England, and she moved to Chandler, Arizona, of all places, and that was where her and I met, became instant friends, connected very deeply, and began to understand that we had much more than a friendship, and it was a very deep working relationship and so forth. And so recently partnered fully with the company so that I can help expand. And my main focus is bringing the education, because her father wrote just tons of books with unbelievable information, and some of it people can't digest. It's too intricate, or it's a little bit too scientific. It doesn't make sense. And so one skill that I've had in this life so far is being able to kind of bridge the gap, I guess, in communication from the scientist to the everyday person, so that the everyday person can understand why certain things are so important. And so a lot of my focus has been recently has just been going back through a lot of the studies, the research behind the products that we have, so that I can explain why they're so necessary, especially with the environment that we live in today, because the company is all around health, science, and energy, and all of health frequency, as well as taking care of the temple, different minerals, supplements, unbelievable master formulator that helped us through some of that process. So it's been a wild ride, but the company it's all based on bringing the temple to a place of really the natural state, protecting the body from man-made environmental factors, so that the consciousness can be raised, or whatever the personal goal is. My main thing is ascension. So for people to be able to operate optimally is really what we're doing.
So can you tell me a little bit about how you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most mainstream products that we have are minerals and vitamins. And the main thing, why minerals is literally thought itself, consciousness, is influenced by certain minerals. And minerals are in our bone and our cellular structure, right? Some of the minerals, like calcium, copper, magnesium, that type of thing. And then there's minerals that work through the nervous system. So it's kind of like a level 2. Like chromium, something like that. And then when you start looking at high vibratory minerals, which is like the third level, those are trace minerals. And that's something that we offer, and we get our ingredients through multiple places throughout the world. That's going to be like gold or titanium. And all these minerals are found in our nervous system, or like the parasympathetic nervous system, the network, And so why trace minerals are so important is that basically they make sure that when we receive a frequency or put something into our body, that hormones and neurohormones are released correctly and in good timing in the brain. And when we don't have those, that's why we're experiencing depression or stress. We don't know how to handle certain things. It's harder to get into a meditative state. 5% of the body is made up of minerals, but that 5% regulates the other 95% of the body. So minerals are unbelievably important, but also minerals that can be absorbed correctly into the bloodstream and actually utilized, because one or two things happen. Something enters the body, and the body immediately goes, invader, repel it, what is this? And they kind of surround it and attack it to figure out what it is. Or then they decide if they can use it, or if they need to somehow encapsulate it with fat or whatever it is and get rid of it. But when you have a fantastic formulation, then it can enter the body, and the body immediately can say, okay, this is something that we recognize, we can immediately utilize it, take it where it needs to go type of thing. So the minerals are obviously unbelievably important, just for all of those reasons. And the vitamins are kind of a part of that system, and they typically cleanse quite a bit. They're just jam-packed. I couldn't even tell you what all the stuff that's in there off the top of my head. But the vitamins are more about enzymes, basically little chemical units of energy, and making sure that the body is alkaline is what the vitamins are doing in one small aspect. It's called Purelite. It's a drink. We went with the lemon lime flavor, and then the vitamins as well. You can find those both on Pyradine.com. It's PYRADYNE.com, and there's just a little shop now button. And then I believe we have a package where you can purchase the minerals and the vitamins, which I always say to do is to take them together and give them a good 2 weeks of taking the exact dosage that you're supposed to take. There's actually 5 pills that you have to take a day. And then the mineral is in a powder. Both of those can be bought on the website.
That's great. What kind of things are you guys doing to grow this business?
At the same time that I jumped on board, I have a good friend of mine, I absolutely love him to death, Oliver Palamayan, and he had jumped on board with Pyradine at the same time, the marketing and the sales pieces. And if anyone knows him, they know how absolutely amazing he is at getting messages out there. And so when him and I met each other, we were like, we have some work to do on a whole other level. And we had decided with Megan as well, Megan is the original owner in Pyradine, that we were going to focus on our purpose work for 2016. And all of a sudden I was like, I need to get all of us together. And we ended up, Oliver and I flew to Arizona and sat down with Megan, and it was immediate that we were going to partner up and work on purpose work. And Paradigm has been a part of all of our nice purpose work. And that's, I hate to sound cheesy, but that's really been my focus with everything that I do. But especially being able to partner up with these folks on it. And Paradigm has always been to raise the vibration of the planet, to allow people healthy bodies, healthy temples, so that they can combat all of the environmental stress and what it's doing to their mindset and their lifestyle and their emotions and all of those things, because it's so much more impactful than people realize. And so our goal right now is expansion. We're already a global company. Most of our customers are all over the world. And so a lot of them want to be looking at, distribution. And so we're digging into, how can we best serve them and then make sure that the message is delivered correctly and all those different things. But expansion, and we're just in the forefront of really looking at, how can we do that in a way that's manageable, and, of course, with an integrity, and allows for the message to not be muddied in the process.
That's really great. It's really inspiring to have you and talk about this with you.
Right. I can truly say it, and I'm becoming much more okay with standing in my truth, is that I know that I'm here to help the planet in any way that I can, and I'm not afraid to stand in what I believe and how I know that I can accomplish that, and always do it with love, with integrity, and to assist anyone who's searching for that too, that they can find really the peace. Because when you can find peace within yourself, that's just the building block, the foundation of expansion. And when I say expansion, I just mean of being able to be everything that they're supposed to be for the planet, because I cannot rise alone. I don't believe that I can. And by being a servant leader, it allows for me to help other servant leaders and for them to see their power and to stand up. And if there's one intention that I'm setting for this call for anyone who listens to it, and just in life, is that people stand in their truth, and that they always put others before themselves, and that they serve from a place that comes from their heart as well as their mind and their soul and everything in between. And they don't let the little things that we get caught up in this human experience drag them down.
You're making an impact, and you're going to continue to make an impact. And I really, really appreciate you having this conversation. It's been really enlightening. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the Strategic Growth Experts podcast. Subscribe, find us on Facebook and Twitter, and check out the website at strategicgrowthexperts.com.